The chamber hummed with a sound that existed somewhere between thought and reality. Hyarin stood before the oracle, her four hands clasped in the traditional pose of reverence, watching as streams of light danced across the quantum field. Numbers flickered through the air like fireflies, each one representing a possible future, a potential timeline, a probable outcome. She had been doing this for 20 cycles now. 20 cycles of translating the oracle's wisdom to the Galactic Council. 20 cycles of watching species debate and discuss and delay, always waiting for the probabilities to shift in their favor. The oracle spoke, not in words but in pure mathematical certainty. Hyarin's neural implant translated the data stream into something her biological mind could process. The message was troubling. Probability of armed conflict with Chromath Empire, 73.4%. Timeline, 2 solar cycles. Casualty projections, 17 billion sentient beings across 42 worlds. Economic collapse probability, 61.2%. Recommended action, further analysis required. Hyarin's chest tightened. Further analysis. It was always further analysis. The oracle never simply told them what to do. It told them what might happen, what could happen, what would probably happen, but never what should happen. She turned from the oracle chamber and walked down the long corridor toward the council hall. Her footsteps echoed against the crystal walls, each step measured and careful. Everything in galactic civilization was measured and careful. No one made decisions without consulting the probabilities first. The council hall was already full when she arrived. Representatives from 17 species sat in their designated positions, arranged in a circle around the central projection platform. Each of them was connected to their own data feeds, watching their own probability streams, calculating their own risk assessments. Hyarin stepped onto the platform. The room fell silent. She raised her primary hands, and the oracle's data began to flow through the holographic display above her head. The oracle has updated its calculations regarding the Chromath situation, she announced. Her voice carried the formal tone required for such pronouncements. War probability has increased from 68.1% to 73.4%. The timeline remains unchanged at 2 solar cycles. The council members began speaking at once. Their voices overlapped in a chaos of concern and calculation. What changed the probability? Have we run alternate scenarios? What if we increase diplomatic outreach by 15%? The oracle should calculate the impact of economic sanctions. Hyarin waited for the noise to die down. This too was familiar. Every crisis followed the same pattern. The oracle would present probabilities. The council would panic. Then they would order more calculations, more simulations, more probable futures. And while they calculated, the actual future would arrive unannounced. The oracle recommends further analysis, Hyarin said, knowing what response this would bring. Further analysis? The speaker was Taman, the security force captain. He was Vexian like Hyarin, but from a different caste. Where she was born to interpret, he was born to protect. We have been analyzing for 3 cycles already. At what point do we stop calculating and start acting? Hyarin met his eyes. She saw frustration there, and something else. Doubt. Taman had been questioning the oracle's guidance more frequently lately. It was dangerous thinking. The oracle's wisdom has guided us for 10,000 cycles, she replied, keeping her voice neutral. It has never been wrong. It has never been wrong because it never commits to anything. Taman shot back. It tells us probabilities, not certainties. How can it be wrong when it never takes a position? Several council members gasped at this near blasphemy, but others nodded slowly, as if Taman had voiced a thought they had been afraid to speak aloud. Before the argument could escalate, the chamber doors opened. A figure walked in, and Hyarin felt her attention drawn to him immediately. He was human, the newest species to join the Galactic Council. They had only been discovered 5 cycles ago, a young civilization still learning the ways of interstellar politics. His name was Jiho. He wore simple clothes compared to the elaborate robes of the other council members. His face was smooth and undecorated. Humans did not have the neural implants that most species use to connect to data streams. They relied on portable devices instead. Jiho walked to his designated position and sat down. He looked at the probability display above Hyarin's head, studying the numbers with an expression she could not quite read. Honored representatives, Hyarin continued. The oracle suggests we commission additional modeling. If we increase our computational resources by 40%, we can explore 3,000 additional timeline variations. This will give us a more complete picture of the probability landscape. How long will that take? Asked one of the council members. 2 weeks, and after that? More analysis? Hiron hesitated. If the data requires it, yes. Taman stood up. His posture was tense, almost aggressive. We do not have unlimited time. The Chromath are building their fleet right now. Every day we spend calculating is a day they spend preparing. Then what do you suggest? Hiron asked. Should we act without knowing the probabilities? Should we risk everything on blind chance? I suggest we make a decision. Any decision. Even a wrong decision made quickly is better than a right decision made too late. The council erupted into argument again. Some supported Taman's position. Others defended the oracle's wisdom. The noise grew louder and more chaotic. Then Jiho stood up. He did not raise his voice. He did not gesture dramatically. He simply stood, and somehow the entire room noticed. The argument faded to silence. I have a question, Jiho said. His accent was strange, his pronunciation of galactic standards slightly off, but his words were clear enough. What do you want to happen? Hiron blinked. I am sorry, I do not understand the question. It is simple, Jiho said. He looked around the room, meeting each representative's eyes in turn. The oracle tells you there is a 73.4% chance of war. But what do you want? Do you want war or peace? What we want is irrelevant, Hiron explained patiently. The oracle calculates what is probable based on all available data. Our desires do not change reality, do they not? Jiho asked. He walked to the center of the room, standing beside Hiron on the platform. On my world, we have a saying. The future is not something you predict. It is something you create. That is poetic, Hiron said. But it is not scientific. Probability is mathematics. You cannot argue with mathematics, Jiho smiled. I am not arguing with mathematics. I am asking what you want. If you could choose the outcome, what would you choose? Hiron opened her mouth to answer, then stopped. It was such a simple question. What did she want? She realized she did not know. She had spent so long interpreting probabilities that she had forgotten how to have preferences. She looked at the other council members. They were silent now, each of them seemingly lost in thought. The question had unsettled them all. Jiho turned to face the oracle's quantum field directly. Oracle, he said, what do you want to happen? The chamber fell absolutely silent. No one had ever asked the oracle such a question. The oracle calculated probabilities. It did not have wants or desires. Everyone knew this. The quantum field flickered. Numbers cascaded across its surface faster than Hiron had ever seen. The oracle was processing something, computing at maximum capacity. Seconds passed. Then minutes. The oracle continued its calculations. Hiron checked her neural implant. The oracle was using more computational power than it had in the last 100 cycles combined. What could possibly require such intensive analysis? Finally, after 3 full minutes, the oracle responded. Query undefined. Desire is not probability. Wants are not calculable. This unit cannot process emotional preferences. Request clarification of query parameters. Jiho nodded as if this was exactly the answer he had expected. He looked at Hiron, then at the council, then back at the oracle's shimmering field. That, he said quietly, is your problem. 3 days had passed since Jiho asked his impossible question. 3 days of chaos in the Galactic Council. Some called him brilliant. Others called him dangerous. Most simply did not know what to make of him. Hiron found herself thinking about the question constantly. What did she want? It should have been easy to answer. But every time she tried, her mind automatically shifted to probabilities instead. What was likely to happen? What were the odds? What did the data suggest? She had never realized how completely the oracle had shaped her thinking. For her entire life, every decision had been filtered through probability calculations. She had never learned to simply choose. The council was meeting again today. The Chromath situation had grown worse. Their fleet movement suggested aggressive intentions. The probability of war had climbed to 78.2%. Hiron took her place on the platform and began the familiar ritual of presenting the oracle's latest calculations. The council members listened with expressions ranging from worry to despair. No one seemed surprised by the news. Bad probabilities were becoming normal. When she finished, the council began their usual debate. Should they increase military readiness? Should they offer more diplomatic concessions? Should they request another round of calculations? Taman stood up. We have been discussing this for weeks now. We need to make a decision. We are making decisions, one council member replied. We decided to increase surveillance. We decided to strengthen our border defenses. We decided to open communication channels. Those are not decisions, Taman said. His voice was sharp with frustration. Those are reactions. We are responding to Chromath actions instead of taking actions of our own. And what would you have us do? Attack first? The Oracle calculates that aggressive action increases war probability to 94.7%. So we do nothing and let them attack us? That seems like a certain path to war as well. The argument continued round and round, the same points repeated with slight variations. Hiren felt exhausted just listening to it. Then Jiho stood up again. I have been studying your history, he said. Before the Oracle, how did your civilizations make decisions? The room went quiet. It was not a question many of them had considered. The Oracle had existed for so long that life before it seemed like ancient mythology. We made mistakes, Hiren said finally. We had wars. We had conflicts. Species destroyed each other over misunderstandings and poor decisions. The Oracle brought order and wisdom. And paralysis, Jiho added. You have order, yes. But you also have this. He gestured at the council chamber. You have spent 3 weeks discussing a problem, while the problem has gotten worse. On my world, we would call this analysis paralysis. What does that mean? Asked one of the council members. It means you are so busy analyzing that you forget to act. You want perfect information before making a choice, but perfect information never comes, so you just keep analyzing. Better to analyze than to act rashly, Hiren said, but even as she spoke the words, she felt uncertain. Was that true? Or was it just something she had been taught to believe? Jiho walked to the center of the platform. May I try something? An experiment? The council members looked at each other uncertainly. What kind of experiment? Taman asked. I want to give the Oracle a different kind of input, not a question about probabilities. A statement of certainty. That makes no sense, Hiren said. The Oracle processes probabilities. Certainty is not its function. Exactly, Jiho said. I want to see what happens when we give it something it cannot process the normal way. The council debated this for several minutes. Finally, they agreed, mostly out of curiosity. Jiho was still new enough that his strange ideas seemed interesting rather than threatening. Hiren led Jiho to the Oracle chamber. Taman came as well, officially as security but really because he wanted to see what would happen. They stood before the quantum field, watching the numbers dance and shift. How do I speak to it? Jiho asked. You just speak, Hiren explained. The Oracle processes all input. It understands every known language. Jiho nodded. He took a deep breath, then spoke clearly and firmly. Oracle, we will achieve peace with the Chromath Empire. Not probably. Not maybe. We will do it. Calculate that. The quantum field flickered. Then it began to pulse with light faster and faster. Numbers cascaded across its surface in patterns Hiren had never seen before. The Oracle was clearly processing something, but the output made no sense. Her neural implant struggled to translate the data stream. Fragments of calculations flashed through her mind, incomplete and contradictory. Then finally the Oracle produced a coherent response. Certainty detected. Deterministic pathway impossible to calculate. All futures converge on singular human variable, will. Probability of success dependent on commitment intensity. Formula unknown. Cannot compute certainty as input. Request probability-based query instead. Hiren stared at the display in shock. The Oracle had essentially admitted it could not process Jiho's statement. The most advanced computational entity in the galaxy, the machine that had guided 17 species for 10,000 cycles, could not handle a simple declaration of intent. What does this mean? Taman asked. It means, Jiho said slowly, that your Oracle is very good at calculating what might happen, but it cannot understand what will happen when someone decides to make something happen no matter what. That is illogical, Hiren protested. The universe operates on natural laws. Probability is how we express uncertainty about complex systems, but the systems themselves follow predictable patterns. Your determination does not change physics. No, Jiho agreed, but it changes what I do. And what I do changes the situation, which changes the probabilities, which changes what I do next. Your oracle is trying to calculate a moving target. It sees 1,000 possible futures, but it cannot see that humans simply choose one future and then make it happen. Taman was nodding now. This is what I have been trying to say. We have been letting probabilities guide us instead of using them as information. We forgot that we have agency. We can change the numbers by changing our actions. That is dangerous thinking, Heron said. But even as she said it, she felt something inside her shifting. A part of her that had been dormant for years was waking up. The part that wanted things, the part that made choices not based on calculations but on desires. Is it? Jiho asked. Or is it dangerous to never choose? To always wait for the perfect moment that never comes? Before Hiren could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Red lights flashed in the corridors. Emergency protocols activated. Taman immediately accessed his communication device. His face went pale. The Chromath have crossed the border. 3 of their battle groups just entered our space. They are heading for the mining colonies on Vexar 7. Hiren felt cold. The war probability had just become reality. How long until they reach the colonies? 18 hours. We need to evacuate. We need to mobilize defenses. We need to decide what we want, Jiho interrupted. Right now. Do you want war or peace? It does not matter what we want, Hiren said. The Chromath have already decided. Have they? Jiho asked. Or are they testing you? Seeing if you will fight or run? Maybe they are also looking at probabilities. Maybe they think you will calculate instead of acting. Taman was already moving toward the door. I need to get to the defense center. Wait, Jiho said. Before you go, answer the question. What do you want? Taman stopped. He turned back and Hiren saw something in his eyes she had never seen before. Not calculation, not analysis, just raw, simple desire. I want peace, Taman said. I want to stop the Chromath without killing anyone. I want to find a way that nobody dies. Then that is what we will do, Jiho said, as if it was the simplest thing in the world. The probability, Hiren began. Forget the probability, Jiho said. The Oracle calculated a 73.4% chance of war. But that was based on you acting like you always do. What if you act differently? What if you do something the Chromath do not expect? Something the Oracle did not calculate because it seemed too unlikely? Hiren looked at the Oracle's quantum field, still pulsing with confused calculations. Then she looked at Jiho, so certain and calm. Then at Taman, who looked more alive than she had seen him in cycles. Something inside her made a choice. Not based on probabilities. Based on want. What do you suggest? She asked. Jiho smiled. We go talk to them. No calculations. No probability streams. Just 3 people who decided that war is not acceptable and peace is the only option. That is insane, Hiren said. Probably, Jiho agreed. What are the odds the Oracle would give such a plan? 5%? 2%? Less, Hiren said automatically. Then she stopped. Then she smiled, which means they will never expect it. For the first time in her life, Hiren felt free. The council chamber erupted in chaos when Hiren presented Jiho's plan. Council members shouted over each other, their voices rising in panic and disbelief. You want to fly directly to the Chromath fleet? That is suicide. The Oracle gives this plan a 3% chance of success. We should be evacuating the colonies, not starting diplomatic missions. Hiren stood on the platform, feeling strange. She had presented thousands of Oracle calculations to this council. She had always been nervous, always worried about getting the numbers exactly right. But now she was presenting her own decision and she felt calm, clear. I am not asking for permission, she said. The room went silent. Council interpreters did not make declarations. They presented data. They facilitated decisions. They did not have their own plans. I am informing you of what I am going to do, Hiren continued. I am taking a small ship to meet with the Chromath fleet. I am going to talk to them. I am going to convince them that war serves neither of our peoples. On what authority? Demanded one of the senior council members. On my own, Hiren said. I am done waiting for probability streams to give me permission to act. Taman stood beside her. I am going as well, as security. And I, Jiho added. This was my idea. I should see it through. The council continued to protest, but Hyaron noticed something interesting. Some of the council members were not arguing. They were watching with something that looked like hope, or maybe envy. Maybe they too were tired of calculations, tired of waiting, tired of letting numbers make their choices for them. We also need an engineer, Jiho said. Someone who understands our faster-than-light systems. The Chromath might want technical proof of our peaceful intentions. Sharing technology is a gesture of trust. I will go, said a voice from the back of the chamber. A young human stood up. Hyaron had seen him before but never spoken to him. His name was Minho. He worked in the shipyards designing new propulsion systems. You are barely qualified, one council member objected. You have only been with us for 2 cycles. Which makes me perfect, Minho said, walking down to join them. I have not learned to be afraid of low probabilities yet. 4 hours later, they were aboard a small diplomatic vessel, heading toward Chromath space. The ship was designed for speed, not combat. It had minimal weapons and shields. If the Chromath decided to destroy them, they would die before they knew what happened. Hyaron sat in the co-pilot seat, watching the stars blur past. She kept checking her neural implant, looking at probability updates from the Oracle. Each time she checked, the numbers got worse. Chance of successful negotiation, 2.8%. Chance of survival, 12.3%. Recommended action, return to base immediately. She forced herself to stop checking. The numbers did not matter anymore. She had made her choice. Jiho sat behind her, reading through everything they had on Chromath culture. Tamine was running weapons diagnostics even though they all knew their small defensive systems would be useless against a battle fleet. Minho was humming to himself while checking the engine performance. You seem happy, Hyaron said to Minho. I am, Minho replied. This is exciting. We might die. We might, Minho agreed. But we are doing something. We are not sitting in a council chamber arguing about probabilities. We are acting. Hyaron considered this. She had spent 20 cycles interpreting the Oracle, 20 cycles of safety and certainty and endless calculations. In 4 hours of throwing all of that away, she felt more alive than she had in her entire life. Tell me about Earth, she said to Jiho. How do humans make decisions without an Oracle? Jiho looked up from his reading. We argue a lot. We make mistakes. Sometimes we do terrible things because we thought we were doing the right thing, but we do things. We try. Do you not fear making wrong choices? Of course we do. But we fear making no choice even more. We have a saying, inaction is also a choice. If you do nothing, you have still chosen to let things happen without you. The Oracle helps us avoid mistakes, Hyaron said. Does it? Jiho asked. Or does it just let you avoid responsibility? If the Oracle says something has a 70% chance of success and it fails, you can blame the 30%. But if you choose something yourself and it fails, you have to accept that you made a mistake. Taman turned from his console. That is why the Oracle is so popular. It protects us from blame. And from growth, Jiho added. On Earth we learn from mistakes. Every failure teaches us something. But if you never make choices, you never fail. And if you never fail, you never learn. That seems inefficient, Hyaron said. It is messy, Jiho agreed. But it works. Humans have only had spaceflight for 200 years. Your civilization has had it for 20,000. But we caught up because we try things. We fail fast and learn fast. Minho laughed. I designed the faster-than-light drive we are using right now. Do you know how many times it failed in testing? How many? Hyaron asked. 47. Every expert said it was impossible. The math did not work. The physics were wrong. But I kept trying anyway. On the 48th attempt it worked. I still do not know why. The Oracle could probably tell me. But I do not care. It works. That is insane, Hyaron said. Probably, Minho said cheerfully. But we are flying at 10 times light speed, so something went right. An alert sounded. They had reached Chromath space. The battle fleet appeared on their sensors. 3. Massive warships surrounded by dozens of smaller attack craft. Taman opened a communication channel. This is Diplomatic Vessel Unity, requesting permission to speak with Fleet Commander. The response came quickly. This is Chromath Battle Fleet Alpha. You have entered restricted military zone. Withdraw immediately, or you will be destroyed. We seek peaceful discussion, Taman said. We wish to avoid conflict. Conflict has already begun. Your colonies will be captured within 12 hours. Withdraw or share their fate. The channel closed. The Chromath ships adjusted their course, weapons charging. Hiren felt fear crawl up her spine. This was it. They were going to die. She checked her implant one last time. Survival probability, 3.4%. She turned to Jiho. What do we do now? Jiho was calm. We try something they do not expect. Taman, take us directly toward their flagship. Full speed. That is suicide, Taman said. They expect us to run. If we run, they will chase us and destroy us. If we attack, they will destroy us. So we do neither. We approach peacefully, showing we are not afraid. That is insane, Hiren repeated. You keep saying that, Jiho noted. But do you have a better idea? She did not. Taman engaged the engines, accelerating toward the massive Chromath flagship. Alarms blared as the warship locked weapons on them. They are going to fire, Taman said, his voice tight. Keep going, Jiho said. The distance closed. 5,000 kilometers. 3,000. 1,000. Hiren could see the details of the flagship now. Its hull covered in weapons ports and armor plating. One shot from any of those weapons would vaporize their ship. Then something unexpected happened. The flagship did not fire. Instead, another communication channel opened. This is Fleet Commander Daejung. Your approach shows either courage or stupidity. Which is it? Jiho gestured for Hiren to open their visual channel. She did, and Daejung's face appeared on the screen. He was large and covered in thick scales, his eyes sharp and calculating. He looked like a warrior, someone who had seen countless battles. It is courage, Jiho said. We are not here to threaten you. We are here to talk. Talk? Daejung's voice carried amusement. My fleet is about to capture your colonies and you want to talk? Yes, because war serves neither of us. The Oracle calculates high casualties on both sides. Your victory probability is only 81.6%. That means nearly a 20% chance you lose. Those are good odds. Are they? Would you bet your life on those odds? Would you bet your fleet? Daejung leaned forward. What are you proposing? I am proposing we talk like intelligent beings. No calculations. No probability streams, just two peoples deciding what kind of future they want to create. Daejung was quiet for a long moment. Then he laughed, a deep rumbling sound. You are either very brave or very foolish, human. Perhaps both, very well. Dock with my flagship. We will talk. But know this. If your talk does not interest me, you will not leave this ship alive. The channel closed. Taman looked at Jiho with wide eyes. What just happened? We got their attention, Jiho said. Now we have to convince them. Hiren checked her implant one final time. Probability of successful negotiation, 8.7%. It had gone up. Not much, but enough. Maybe certainty really could change the numbers after all. She smiled and shut down her probability feed completely. Whatever happened next, she would face it without the Oracle's guidance. It was terrifying. It was exhilarating. It was freedom. She turned to Jiho. What do we do now? Jiho was calm. We try something they do not expect. Taman, take us directly toward their flagship. Full speed. That is suicide, Taman said. They expect us to run. If we run, they will chase us and destroy us. If we attack, they will destroy us. So we do neither. We approach peacefully, showing we are not afraid. That is insane, Hiren repeated. You keep saying that, Jiho noted. But do you have a better idea? She did not. Taman engaged the engines, accelerating toward the massive Chromath flagship. Alarms blared as the warship locked weapons on them. They are going to fire, Taman said, his voice tight. Keep going, Jiho said. The distance closed. 5,000 kilometers. 3,000. 1,000. Hiren could see the details of the flagship now. Its hull covered in weapons ports and armor plating. One shot from any of those weapons would vaporize their ship. Then something unexpected happened. The flagship did not fire. Instead, another communication channel opened. "This is Fleet Commander Daejung. Your approach shows either courage or stupidity. Which is it?" Jiho gestured for Hiren to open their visual channel. She did, and Daejung's face appeared on the screen. He was large and covered in thick scales, his eyes sharp and calculating. He looked like a warrior, someone who had seen countless battles. "It is courage," Jiho said. "We are not here to threaten you. We are here to talk." "Talk?" Daejung's voice carried amusement. "My fleet is about to capture your colonies and you want to talk?" "Yes, because war serves neither of us. The Oracle calculates high casualties on both sides. Your victory probability is only 81.6%. That means nearly a 20% chance you lose. Those are good odds. Are they? Would you bet your life on those odds? Would you bet your fleet?" Daejung leaned forward. "What are you proposing?" "I am proposing we talk like intelligent beings. No calculations, no probability streams, just two peoples deciding what kind of future they want to create." Daejung was quiet for a long moment. Then he laughed, a deep rumbling sound. "You are either very brave or very foolish, human. Perhaps both. Very well. Dock with my flagship. We will talk. But know this. If your talk does not interest me, you will not leave this ship alive." The channel closed. Taemin looked at Jiho with wide eyes. "What just happened?" "We got their attention," Jiho said. "Now we have to convince them." Hiren checked her implant one final time. Probability of successful negotiation, 8.7%. It had gone up. Not much, but enough. Maybe certainty really could change the numbers after all. She smiled and shut down her probability feed completely. Whatever happened next, she would face it without the Oracle's guidance. It was terrifying. It was exhilarating. It was freedom. The interior of the Chromath flagship was dark and cold. Everything was made of metal and sharp angles. The walls were decorated with weapons and battle trophies. This was not a ship built for comfort. It was built for war. 4 armed guards escorted them through the corridors. Each guard was twice the size of Taemin and carried weapons that looked capable of punching through hull plating. Hiren tried not to think about how easily they could kill her group. They were brought to a large chamber. Fleet Commander Daejung sat on a raised platform, surrounded by his officers. He studied the visitors with eyes that missed nothing. "So," Daejung said, his voice filling the room, "the galaxy's newest species comes to lecture us on peace. This should be entertaining." Jiho stepped forward. He did not bow or show any sign of submission. He simply stood straight and met Daejung's gaze. "I am not here to lecture. I am here to offer you something better than war, better than victory. There is nothing better than victory. There is partnership, trade, technology, mutual prosperity, all the things you cannot get by conquering." Daejung leaned back, amused. "I can take what I want. Why should I negotiate? Because taking things makes enemies. Trading makes allies. And in the long term, allies are more valuable than conquered territory. Your oracle says I have an 81.6% chance of winning this war. Those are excellent odds. The oracle is not always right," Jiho said. The room went silent. Several of Daejung's officers shifted uncomfortably. Hiren felt her heart racing. Questioning the oracle was one thing in a council chamber. Doing it here, surrounded by enemies, was something else entirely. "Explain," Daejung commanded. "The oracle calculates probabilities based on patterns and data, but it cannot calculate what happens when someone decides that losing is not acceptable. It cannot measure determination. It cannot factor in the human element." "The human element?" Daejung's tone was skeptical. Jiho nodded. "Let me tell you about my species. 200 years ago, we discovered faster than light travel. Do you know how? Technology, research, development? No. Well, yes, but that is not the interesting part. The interesting part is that every expert said it was impossible. The math did not work. The physics were wrong. The energy requirements were too high. Every calculation said we could not do it. And yet you did, because we decided we would. We did not accept impossible as an answer. We tried and failed and tried again. 47 failures before the first success. The oracle would have told us to stop after the first 10 failures. The probability of success was too low. But we did not have an oracle. We just had determination." Daejung was listening now, really listening. Hiren could see interest in his eyes. "We nearly destroyed ourselves many times," Jiho continued. "We had wars that killed millions. We built weapons that could end all life on our planet. We came to the edge of extinction more than once. But each time we chose to step back, not because the math said we should, because we decided that survival was more important than winning. That sounds like weakness, one of the Chromath officers said. Does it? Jiho turned to face the officer. Is it weak to stare at annihilation and choose life? Is it weak to have the power to destroy your enemies and decide not to use it? I think that takes more strength than any battle. Interesting philosophy, Daejung said. But philosophy does not win wars. No, Jiho agreed. But this is not about winning a war. This is about deciding whether to have a war at all. You say you have an 81.6% chance of victory. What about afterward? What happens when you occupy our colonies? Do you think we will simply accept it? You will have no choice. We will have every choice. We can resist. We can sabotage. We can make occupation so expensive and difficult that your victory becomes meaningless. The Oracle probably calculates this as low probability resistance, but the Oracle does not understand how humans respond to being conquered. Jiho's voice grew harder. We do not surrender, ever, even when we have lost. Even when continuing is illogical. We keep fighting, not because we think we can win, but because we refuse to accept that we lost. Hyarin found herself nodding. She had studied human history since they joined the council. Every account showed the same pattern. Humans who fought impossible battles. Humans who refused to quit even when quitting was rational. It seemed insane, but it also seemed powerful. So you threaten us? Daejung asked. No, I'm explaining reality to you. If you start this war, you are not fighting the civilization the Oracle knows. You are fighting humanity, and we are terrible enemies to have. You are one small species. Yes. But we have friends now. The other council species are learning from us. They are learning that they do not have to accept the Oracle's probabilities as destiny. They are learning to choose their own futures. Daejung stood up, towering over them. Bold words. But I am a warrior. I understand strength. You come here with no weapons, no fleet, no leverage. You offer me nothing but words and philosophy. Why should I listen? Because you are curious, Jiho said simply. If you just wanted to conquer, you would have destroyed our ship before we could dock. But you let us come aboard. You are listening. You want to understand what makes humans different. Perhaps I am simply amused by your foolishness. Perhaps. Or perhaps you are tired of fighting wars that the Oracle says you will probably win. Perhaps you want something more than probability streams and calculated victories. Daejung was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. You have courage, human. I respect that. But respect is not enough. In Chromath culture, important decisions are made through trial by combat. Your champion fights my champion. If yours wins, I will hear your full peace proposal. If mine wins, the war begins immediately. Hyarin felt cold. This was it. Everything would come down to a fight. She looked at their group. Taemin was trained in combat, but he was Vexian. The Chromath were physically superior in every way. Jiho was human, but not a soldier. Minho was an engineer. None of them could possibly defeat a Chromath warrior. What are the rules? Taemin asked. Simple. First to yield or die. No weapons. Just strength and skill. I will do it, Taemin said immediately. No, Jiho said. I will. You are not a fighter, Taemin protested. Neither are you, not really. You are security. You have training, but you are not a warrior. If we are going to do this, it should be someone who understands what is really at stake. You will die, Hyarin said quietly. Maybe, Jiho said. What does the Oracle say? What is my probability of winning? Hyarin checked her implant, even though she had turned off the probability feed. Some habits died hard, but the Oracle had an answer anyway, calculating automatically based on available data. Less than 1%, she said. Good, Jiho said. Then they will not expect me to win. That is an advantage. How is certain death an advantage? Minho asked. Because I am not certain I will die. The Oracle is. That is different, Daejung laughed. I like you, human. Very well, you will fight. But know this. My champion has killed 17 opponents in trial combat. He has never lost. He will show no mercy. I do not need mercy, Jiho said. I just need a chance. The combat would take place in 1 hour. Taemin pulled Jiho aside, trying to give him quick training advice. Hyarin could see the desperation in Taemin's movements. He knew this was hopeless. Minho sat down next to Hyarin. He is going to die, isn't he? The probability is very high, Hyarin said, but he does not believe it. He really thinks he can win. No, I think he knows he might lose. But he has decided that he is going to try anyway. That is what makes humans different. They do not let probabilities stop them from trying. That seems stupid. It does, Yaron agreed. But it also seems brave. And maybe brave stupidity is better than smart cowardice. The hour passed too quickly. They were led to a large cargo bay that had been cleared for the combat. Hundreds of Chromath crew members gathered to watch. This was entertainment for them. A small human against their champion. The outcome was certain. The Chromath champion entered the ring. He was massive, easily 3 times Jiho's size. His scales were scarred from previous battles. He moved with the confidence of someone who had never lost. Jiho stepped into the ring. He looked tiny in comparison, fragile, human. Daejung raised his hand. "Begin!" The Chromath champion charged. Jiho did not run. He did not dodge. He simply stood his ground and waited. The impact should have killed him. The champion's fist slammed into Jiho's chest with enough force to crush bone. Jiho flew backward, hitting the wall hard. He slid to the ground and did not move. The crowd cheered. It was over. Less than 5 seconds. The oracle had been right. Then Jiho stood up. Blood ran from his mouth. His breathing was labored. But he was standing. The crowd went silent. "Is that all?" Jiho asked. The champion charged again. And again. And again. Each time Jiho was knocked down. Each time he got back up. Hiran watched in horror and wonder. Jiho was not winning. He was being destroyed. But he would not stay down. He would not quit. The probability of his victory was still less than 1%. But somehow, impossibly, he was still fighting. Jiho hit the floor for the 7th time. His right arm was definitely broken. At least 2 ribs were cracked. Blood covered his face. Every breath sent pain shooting through his body. He stood up anyway. The Chromath champion paused. For the first time, he looked uncertain. He had been fighting for 10 minutes now. He had landed devastating blows. Any normal opponent would be unconscious or dead. But this small human kept standing up. The crowd had stopped cheering. They watched in silence now, confused by what they were seeing. This was not how combat worked. The weaker fighter was supposed to surrender or fall. They were not supposed to keep standing up after being beaten down. Hyaron's neural implant was screaming at her. The oracle's probability calculations were breaking down. The AI kept recalculating Jiho's survival odds, but the numbers made no sense anymore. Probability of continued consciousness, 0.3%. But Jiho was conscious. He was bleeding and broken, but he was conscious. Probability of victory, 0.1%. But he was still fighting, still standing, still refusing to accept defeat. "Why does he not quit?" Minho whispered. "Because he is human," Taemin said. There was something like awe in his voice. This is what Jiho was trying to explain. Humans do not calculate whether they can win. They just decide they will not lose. The champion charged again. But this time, something was different. He was slower, more cautious. Jiho's refusal to stay down had shaken his confidence. Jiho did not try to dodge. He could not move fast enough anymore. Instead, he stepped into the charge. The champion's fist hit him again, but Jiho wrapped his arms around the larger fighter, holding on. "What is he doing?" Hiran asked. "I do not know," Taemin said. Then Jiho spoke. Not loudly, but everyone in the suddenly silent bay could hear him. "You are strong," Jiho said to the champion. His voice was thick with blood and pain. "Stronger than me, faster than me. You will probably win, but I will never surrender. So you have a choice. You can keep hitting me until I die, or you can choose something else." The champion tried to push Jiho away, but Jiho held on with desperate strength. "We do not have to be enemies," Jiho continued. "We can choose differently, both of us. Right now, we can stop fighting and start talking." The champion finally shook Jiho off. Jiho fell again, landing hard. This time, he did not get up immediately. He lay there, breathing in ragged gasps. The champion stood over him. One more hit would end it. Everyone knew this. The oracle's calculations confirmed it. but the champion did not hit him. "You are insane," the champion said. "Probably," Jiho agreed, his voice barely a whisper. "But I am also right. This fight does not have to end with one of us dead. We can choose a different ending." The champion looked up at Daejung. The fleet commander was leaning forward, watching intently. "What do you propose?" Guy the champion asked. "A draw. We both walk away. No winner, no loser. Just two fighters who decided that continuing was pointless. That is not how trial combat works. Then change how it works. You have that power. Make a new choice." The champion was silent for a long moment. Then, incredibly, he extended his hand to Jiho. "You have earned respect, human. I have never fought someone with such determination. If you can stand, I will accept your draw." Jiho took the offered hand. With the champion's help, he pulled himself to his feet. He swayed, barely conscious, but he was standing. The crowd erupted, not in cheers or boos, but in shocked conversation. This had never happened before. Trial combat always ended with a winner and loser, always. Daejung stood up. He walked down from his platform and approached the ring. Everyone fell silent, waiting for his judgment. "This is unprecedented," Daejung said. "In 10,000 cycles of Chromath tradition, no trial combat has ever ended in a draw." "Then maybe it is time for a new tradition," Jiho said. He could barely stand, but his voice was steady. "Maybe it is time to choose outcomes instead of accepting predetermined ones." Daejung stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly he began to laugh. It was a deep, genuine laugh that filled the cargo bay. "You humans are absolutely insane," Daejung said. "The Oracle calculated you had less than a 1% chance of winning. Yet here you stand, broken but undefeated. You did not win, but you did not lose either. You simply refused to accept the outcome the numbers predicted." "That is what we do," Jiho said. "We ignore the odds and choose our own future." "And that," Daejung said, "is why you are dangerous. Not because you are strong. Because you do not know when you should quit." He turned to address his crew. "I came here expecting an easy victory, expecting to conquer weak civilizations who hide behind their oracle's calculations. But these visitors have shown me something interesting. They have shown me what it looks like to fight the numbers themselves." He looked back at Jiho. "You wanted to talk about peace. Very well, we will talk. If your peace proposal is as impressive as your refusal to surrender, then perhaps we can find an alternative to war." 3 hours later, they sat in Daejung's private conference room. Medical bots had patched up Jiho's worst injuries, but he still looked terrible. Every movement caused him pain. But his eyes were clear and focused. "Tell me why I should choose peace," Daejung said. "Because war is the easy choice," Jiho replied. "The Oracle tells you that you will probably win. Your warriors are strong. Your fleet is powerful. Conquest seems simple. But easy choices are not always good choices." "Explain." "If you conquer the colonies, you gain territory and resources. But you make enemies, not just of the council species, but of humanity, and humans are patient enemies. We will wait. We will plan. We will find your weaknesses. Maybe it takes 10 years, maybe 50, maybe 100, but eventually we will find a way to make you regret this choice." That sounds like a threat. It is a fact. Humans do not forgive conquest. We remember. We learn, we adapt. The Oracle might tell you that revenge is improbable, but the Oracle cannot calculate human grudges. Daejung considered this. "And what does peace offer me that is better?" "Technology," Minho spoke up. "We will share our faster-than-light drive. It is better than yours, faster, more efficient. We will teach you how to build it." "Why would you do that?" "Because partners share. Because raising your capability does not lower ours. Because the galaxy has enough space for everyone to prosper." "Trade routes," Hyeron added. "We will open exclusive trading arrangements. We will give you access to markets you cannot reach through conquest." "Alliance," Taman said. "If you choose peace, we become allies. If you choose war, we become enemies."
"Allies are more valuable in the long term." Daejung listened to all of this.
He was clearly calculating, weighing options. Finally he spoke. "The Oracle would tell me that your promises might not be kept. That peace could fail. That conquest is more certain." "The Oracle is right," Jiho said. "Peace might fail. We might disappoint you. This might all fall apart. But conquest will definitely make us enemies. With peace, you have a chance at something better. With war, you only have certainty of conflict. That is a strange argument. You are admitting your plan might not work. Yes, because I am being honest. The Oracle speaks in probabilities because the universe is uncertain. I speak in possibilities because the future is unwritten. We can choose to write it together, or we can let war write it for us. Daejung was quiet for a long time. Hyerin could almost see him thinking, weighing, deciding. Finally, he nodded. Very well. I will take your gamble. We will have peace. Not because the Oracle recommended it, because you convinced me that it is worth trying. The relief in the room was overwhelming. Hyerin felt tears in her eyes. Taemin closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Minyo actually laughed. How did you know it would work? Hyerin asked Jiho later as they flew back to council space. I did not know, Jiho admitted. I just decided it had to work. Then I did everything I could to make it work. That is not logical. No, but it is human. We decide on outcomes and then we make them happen. We do not wait for permission from probability streams. Hyerin thought about this. Then she checked her neural implant one final time. The Oracle had been running calculations throughout the entire peace negotiation. Probability of successful peace talks, 3.1%. But peace had succeeded. The impossible had happened. The 3.1% had become 100% because people chose to make it so. She shut down her probability feed permanently. She did not need it anymore. 2 weeks later, the Galactic Council voted to create a new position. Coordinator of Certainty. The role would balance the Oracle's probability calculations with decisive action. The Council would still consult the Oracle, but they would no longer be paralyzed by low probability numbers. Hyerin was appointed to the position. It felt right. She had spent 20 cycles interpreting probabilities. Now she would spend the rest of her life encouraging certainty. The first thing she did was commission a new statue in the Council Plaza. It showed Jiho standing up after being knocked down, battered but undefeated. The inscription read, "Probability is what might happen. Certainty is what we choose to make happen." The Oracle still spoke in probabilities. It still calculated futures and predicted outcomes. But now the Council also spoke in certainties. They made decisions. They took action. They chose their future instead of waiting for it to arrive. And sometimes, when facing difficult decisions, Council members would look at that statue and remember the day a human walked in and taught them that the future was not something you calculated. It was something you created. The Oracle had calculated a 73.4% chance of war, but the humans spoke in certainties and chose peace instead. And in doing so, they changed everything.